We are recording.
Well, hello, everybody. I am Tim from Las Vegas.
And I'm Sam from the Pacific Northwest. What's up, everybody?
Yeah, and here we are again. Thank you for joining us and watching and
Yeah.
continuing to support us here with this segment and also on the Dice Tower, too. And it's always great to talk about topics and see the interest from folks.
Absolutely. Yeah. We will. I started with the last one, but it's something I've been toying around with, and that is putting the actual topic of that we'll be discussing during our rebuttal time on the thumbnail. So hopefully that will drive a little bit more attention to what we're talking about and kind of get you prepared, kind of prime your gears to kind of know what you're supposed to be expecting, at least for part of the conversation.
Right. Because the thing about it is I mean, that's just something I like to do. And Sam, I just want to say you are a great partner to have these discussions with and talk things about. Because again, playing games, right? We all love it. We've talked about that before, but there are issues and topics and stuff that come up in gaming that are just nice to discuss and,
Yes.
to just, get things out there and see what people think.
Yep,
But
absolutely.
yeah, let's just talk about maybe let's start with a couple of games that we've had a chance to maybe play in the last time since we spoke. How about you?
All right. Well, since the last time we recorded, I've played. The one that we actually recorded last was just last week, just a few days ago. I haven't actually been able to play a whole lot of games since then because there's been a lot of just kind of getting my feet back underneath me. But there have been a couple of games that I've played since just before that I'd like to talk about. The first one is one that just kind of came out of nowhere. Because Tom, when I was down in the Dice Tower studios, he basically said, "Hey, come over to my house for dinner tonight. We're going to play some games." And so we played a couple of games that night, and those are the two that I want to talk about. The first one is a two-player game called Isle of Cats Duel. Now, Isle of Cats, I say that specifically. I found something out about Isle of Cats.
I love cats.
They named it that specifically so that when people said the name of the game, they would have to say, if they said it fast, it would sound like you're saying what?
I love cats. Yeah.
I love cats. So no, you're not getting me, suckers. Isle of Cats.
Yeah.
Duel. So basically, whenever I've never played the original game. So this was a brand new game for me. Now I've seen it. I knew it existed, so don't get me wrong. But again, not being I'm not a cat hater like some other people in the industry whose initials are TV. I'm not a cat hater. I don't like cats per se because they're just a little bit too moody. When I come home, I don't want to be met with, "Oh, it's you again."
Right.
I want to be met with, you're home, wag, wag, wag,
Right.
So anyway, when he pulled this game out, and first of all, I was like, "Wow, dude, you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel." First of all, because you're playing a cat game. But anyway, he needed to get it done for a review, so we played it. It's actually a really fun game. I love polyomino tile placements, and that's all you're really doing with the game. You're taking these cats that are positioned in strange polyomino shapes, and you're trying to cover as much of the square footage of the deck of your ship as possible. Now, the lore or the theming behind it is that some dude named Lord Vesh is coming to destroy the island, and you're trying to rescue as many cats as possible, and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, you're placing cats on a ship, and you're trying to cover up as much of the ship's deck as possible. And that's what it is. Now, the two-player mechanism is really cool because the original game is a drafting game. You're trying to draft the shapes and all that kind of stuff that you're pulling into it. But in order to kind of translate that over to a two-player game, because two-player drafting games just aren't that great, really, unless you have something like Seven Wonders Duel or Lord of the Rings Duel or something like that, where you use that pyramid.
But Patchwork is a tile placing drafting game, sort of, right?
Yeah. Also, not a theme I'm interested in, but I've never played that one either.
You've never played
huge on Team
Patchwork,
Dude.
Sam?
No, I've never played Patchwork. I'm not a quilter.
Wow, folks! I apologize. I apologize for Sam. What?
I don't.
You
I've
have
never
not
played
played Patchwork?
dude. Sue me, brother. I've never played Patchwork. I have no interest in
Wow.
playing Patchwork. I just
Wow,
don't.
that's shocking. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, wow. Okay, go ahead. Keep going. Wow.
So anyway, if I was so rudely interrupted, the the drafting mechanism is kind of translated by this board that has I think it's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there's 8 shapes of cats, polynomial shapes, and then there are 4 scoring cards. And when it is your turn to go, you're able to move this cat figure 1 or 2 spaces. You can pay some fish to move it an extra space. You can pay a couple of fish to basically put it wherever you want. And there's other things that you can use fish for. But generally speaking, what you're doing on your turn is you're just choosing either a card and or a fish, because there is a way, I'm sorry, and or a cat. There's also a way that you can get multiple cards if you pay a certain amount of fish. I believe it's you pay 3 fish and then you can take both of the cards that you move to. Or the card and the animal, or the 2 animals, whatever. So you're basically choosing a card or a shape on your turn. Once both people pass consecutively, then the round is over. You wipe the board, you set it back up, and you continue going. It's actually a really fun game. Almost for me at least, in spite of the theme, I really enjoyed it. It was very fun. Has a lot of really good decision spaces as far as how much the currency of fish. Do I take a card for in-game scoring, or do I take that cat that's shaped exactly the way that I need it immediately, or do I try to plan ahead? There's just a lot of really neat decision space in there for a 2-player game. So I really enjoyed it. That was Isle of Cats.
Isle. Make sure you say them separately, slowly, and very clearly.
There's an F on the end of it. It's not a V.
Yes. Yes. Oh, very good. Very good. Yeah, I have to give that game a try, because I do have Isle of Cats up here somewhere, the original game. So I have to give the duel a try. Oh, that sounds good. We know. So one of the games I tried, I tried an old one and a new one. One of the new ones that I tried, it goes back to this discussion we had about being objective or subjective with reviewing. Was a Creature Caravan. I don't know if you've had a chance to play that yet.
I have not.
It's a relatively new game, I think, newer game. And so it basically what it is you have a caravan, and you start at one end of the board, traversing to the other end of the board, going through different kinds of terrain. And on your turn, you roll 5 dice, I believe it was, and you place them on certain parts of like your individual player board, and they let you do actions. Basically what it is. Now, it's one of those games where I personally don't like. And the reason is because everybody's just doing something all at once.
Oh.
So, yeah, with games like that, for me in particular, once the game starts, I just kind of, and again, it's a me issue, right? It's not about the game, because again, this is why the subjective, objective, whatever. I think it's a really good game, and I'll get into that in a second. But as soon as the game starts, I just sort of turn off, because I'm just like, okay, I just don't care what's happening in this game, because I've got zero idea of what you're doing. Nobody knows what I'm doing. And at the end of the game, you got 500 points, you win. Great. Good for you. I don't know what you did. It means nothing. Right?
So there's zero interaction.
Zero. If I remember correctly, basically zero. You're just doing your own thing, rolling your dice, building your own thing. And then, the way it goes, this one guy who ended up winning, he had this weird combo going on. And that's another thing why I don't like these type of games. You can't put anything in your memory bank, right? As far as seeing, wow, how did they do that? Because a lot of times when you're playing these games and somebody makes a cool move, you're like, oh, man, I got to put that in my memory bank for next time, right? So that's a cool combo they came up with, whatever. But this guy had like like, I think the limit is 12 cards you can have in your tableau, and he had like 20 because he had a special ability and this and that and blah blah blah, and he had a deck of cards this thick, and he just had this great thing going on, and it would have been nice to know what he did.
How did that happen? Yeah.
Correct. How did it happen? What did he do? And at the end of the game, you just have no idea. And
Yep.
but I could definitely see why, because it had that sort of Everdell thing where you like have a creature or a character ability and it connects to another one, things like that. And you have to get these, certain types together. If you have 4 machines, 4 giants, you get this ability and you get points if you have this many, kind of thing. So I could see why people like it. I can see why, again, Sam, right? This is the objective subjective. I can see why it's a good game. I can see why people enjoy it. I see the appeal of it, right? So I see all of that, understand it, get it. But for me, won't play it. Yeah, hard
pass. I totally understand that, and actually much for the same reasons. I probably tend to. You were probably much more gracious than I may have been. Not that I would have been overbearing or anything like that, but I'm always suspicious, especially if one person like blows out everybody else. I'm always suspicious. Did you do something wrong? Because it looks like you did something wrong.
Right.
You got a ton of more points than the rest of us did. And there was nobody basically supervising you. Not that I think every turn in every game needs to be micromanaged, but sometimes you have one interpretation of the rules when the rules actually mean this. And in a game like that, it doesn't seem like there's any kind of checks and balances that can go on, where you can have one person saying, I don't know if you can actually do that. Let's check the rules. Because everybody's on autopilot the entire time. JT and I have had this conversation before where sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes he doesn't like that simultaneous action selection or simultaneous, not action selection, but that simultaneous play where everybody's just doing whatever they want or whatever they can do within the construct of the game. Because of that very purpose, somebody could be doing something wrong and you won't know it as the game teacher and they won't know it as the person learning. So I totally understand that. There are some simultaneous action games that I really enjoy, and there are some, but they have interaction. There's times where it's just part of the game that's simultaneous, and then you kind of come back together and everybody's doing something else. And even in those times where you have a phase of simultaneous actions, you stop that phase and you come back and you can have those discussions. Well, I see you did this and you see you did this. I don't know that you can do it. How did that work out? And you can have those discussions real quick. I guess that would be my next question for you. Did you have that discussion after the game was over? Like, did you ask the guy that had 20 cards? How were you able to do that? Did he explain it, or
no? Again, let me just reiterate: it's a me thing, right? It's a me problem because I just didn't care, right? Because, and a lot of time with those games, you really can't, right? Because it takes a lot to get there. But the thing that I could see why it's very enjoyable. I don't play games by myself. Like, I'm not like a solo gamer ever, really. However, why I say I could see why the appeal of this game, because I could see building your story with your individual thing, because you have to get, like I said, if I there's one card that said it's worth, just for, example, it's worth 0 points. However, it's worth 9 points if you have 4+ giants or something like that, right? It's one of those. So I'm like, oh, okay, I could see how it would be fun and interesting to build your own little story, get these same type of characters, do this, do that. I could see the appeal of that, but just together, it's not for me at all.
Understood. And again, I totally understand that because I feel that way a lot as well. I do want some interaction. Some of the greatest, probably most popular games that are out there, I just don't enjoy because they are these large, heavy, Euro games that are basically just a single, multiplayer solitaire. And there's very little interaction in them. I remember Paladins of the West Kingdom came out, and I was like, "Ooh, that sounds awesome! I'm gonna really enjoy it," because I enjoyed Raiders of the North Sea and a lot of those same, like that kind of line of games. I really enjoyed them. Paladins came along, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is gonna be really cool." Norfest, because you don't interact hardly at all, except for, I went here first and you can't go there now. That's it. And I'm like, dude, such a cool game, such a nice looking game as well, but there was hardly any interaction at all, and that just kind of tanks a game for me. So I totally understand.
Yeah.
My second game was, again, another game, the other game that we played that night at Tom's house, and this one was a Kickstarter that he backed 3.5 years ago. He forgot about it, and it just got here. Yeah, he forgot about it, and so it came in this big, huge box that looks like a. It was so big. I was like, dude, you can't say that looks like a book. That looks like a tome. That's how big it was. It was like this huge thing, and you open it up, and it is a campaign style. Did you ever play Time Stories?
Yes, I have. I love Time Stories. Yep.
It has a very similar vibe to Time Stories, except that you're not, you know what you're doing. The players are called Soul Raiders, and they're this kind of warrior that can do a lot of really cool things. They're basically blade masters, because all of them have swords, and then they have some magic ability as well. But you have this deck of cards. The deck of cards have movement cards. They have attack cards, and then they also have spell cards in it. And every character has their kind of, they're very similar at the beginning of the game, but you're able to, as the game goes on, add more cards into your specific deck that make your deck a little bit more different than everybody else's deck. So, but everybody feels really vanilla at the beginning of the game. And we only played the prologue and the chapter. We played the prologue a couple of times, and then we played the chapter once, and then we spent some time looking through all of the chapter cards to see all the different stuff you could do. But what you're basically doing is you're plopped into the middle of this story, and you're trying to figure out what you're supposed to do based on, it's kind of like a choose your own adventure book, but it's a board game. And I mean, it's got nice miniatures, it's got really nice cards, really nice everything. I mean, they went all out on the production quality for this one. Anyway, the prologue was a bit rough, and the reason I say that is because it was trying to teach you all of the different things that could possibly happen in the game at once. And so it was a little bit rough getting through that prologue, but we found out that we were doing something a little bit wrong the first time that we went through it. And we were like, wow, this is really freaking hard, because they only give you a certain amount of time. But we went back and we said, oh, it's not that specific amount of time. You get this much time, I think, plus this much time. So we were trying to do the prologue with like a third of the time that it was going to give you that it was supposed to be giving you. So we were like, man, this is really hard. But anyway, it has the idea, like I was saying with Time Stories, where you have one thing that you're supposed to do within that story. Now, that doesn't sound like much, but if you take into account that the first chapter has something like 120 encounter cards in it, you're looking for a needle in a haystack. But a lot of those other stalks of hay are giving you clues and pointers and sending you down one direction or sending you down in this other direction for what you're having to do. But it was really, really fun. It was so fun that as soon as we were playing it, I contacted JT, and I took a picture of the box. I said, JT, are you getting this one? Because I want to play it again. And it was a Kickstarter that delivered 3.5 years late. So I was hoping that he was still waiting on his copy. But alas, not so, poor Horatio, because he's not getting in and he had never even heard of the game. But I really
I'm sorry,
want
Sam,
to try to get a copy of this game. Huh?
I'm sorry. Can you say the title again?
Soul Raiders.
Soul Raiders. Okay.
Raiders. Soul Raiders. And SOUL by the way. But anyway, it's got really neat miniatures because your characters can go invisible. So instead of just keeping your miniature out there, your regular gray plastic miniature out there, when you go invisible, they actually have a second copy that's like this white translucent figure that's your miniature, and you put that on the board and you replace your other one because you're invisible, and that's just to remind you that you're invisible. It's got monsters in it that will counteract your spells. So if you run into a anti-magic monster and you're invisible, you automatically turn visible again. It's a lot of really neat things that are going on. The monsters are all different, and they have different strengths and they do different things. And that's one of the cool things that I like about those kinds of games, because I've played campaign games that just basically throw you the same monster over and over and over and over and over again, and it gets really boring. This one wasn't like that at all.
Right. So I know you only played like a intro, like you said, or whatever. So what
intro
would
in chapter 1?
Intro in chapter 1. So what would you estimate to be the total length of the entire story or campaign, or what did it say it was?
Dude, I don't remember how much the length of the game was, but
I mean, is it Gloomhaven length? You know what I mean?
No, I would no, and it's not that complex either.
Okay.
It's a much simple. See, I only played Gloomhaven once, and I wanted to play it more for posterity's sake, but not necessarily because I enjoyed my first play of it. My first play of it, I did not like at all. I hated that card hand management mechanism I mean, it just totally turned me off. I enjoyed most of the other game, but because that hand management mechanism was so integral to combat, I was like, I don't like this at all. This one didn't feel like that at all. You had, like I said before, you had attack cards, movement cards, and then spell cards in your deck. And attack cards could be used for attack or movement. But if you used it for attack, you got a special bonus on your attack. And the same thing happened with movement cards. You could use the movement card as an attack card, but if you used it for movement, you get a little bit of a bonus when you use it for movement. And then spell cards are basically, they could be used for the spell, or they could be used for attack or movement. You're using the number that's up in the upper right-hand corner of the card for adding to those values. And basically, whenever you're using a combat card for combat, you're trying to use the number that's on the card plus whatever the bonus is, and you're trying to equal or exceed the bad guy's defense value, whatever it might be. And how many shields it has is how many hit points it has. So you might have to do 6 hit points to knock out one of its shields. You might have to do 8 hit points to a power 8 hit rather to knock out its second shield. But if it's got 2 shields with numbers on it, that means you have to hit it twice in order to knock it out. If it only has 1 shield with 1 number on it, you have to hit it once. That kind of thing. Really great artwork.
So how many chapters like did you think it, or did it say it had, or whatever?
I think the base game came with I want to say 4 chapters. Oh, hush. Sorry.
Okay. So you can get through the whole entire game in, probably 5-6 sittings or something?
I would imagine, yeah. I think you would play I'm looking it up right now as we talk, but I think you would play a chapter, basically a session, if you went that way. Yeah, this is even listed as 2025 on the Geek. 1 to 4 players. It's saying a playing time of 2 to 6 hours. So that's probably about right, I would imagine.
But again, Sam, that might just be per chapter, right? Because I bet you if you go to Gloomhaven, it's not going to say like
that's correct. Yes. No, I would imagine that's correct. And the reason I say that is because the prologue probably took us about an hour, maybe hour and a half, but that was with figuring out all of the new rules and all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
The first chapter, we didn't really stumble upon it. We chose, because the way that the thing all of the paragraphs that we had to read and all of that kind of stuff, we kind of made an educated guess on what we should do from the beginning. And it just happened to be a beeline to what you were trying to accomplish for that one chapter. But
Okay.
like I said, there was like 120 encounter cards in this thing, and they're all numbered. So it's like that's 120 different paths, and we just happened to take the one that led us down into the right spot. But I mean, we were plopped into this in the middle of this gargantuan battle with this huge thing, and we were like, those people gonna die. We're gonna go the other way. And we saw one dude that was doing something, and so we were like, we're gonna follow him, see what he's up to. But it just happened to put us on the direct path to finishing that chapter. So we only took 45 minutes, maybe an hour for that first chapter. But it's because we kind of beelined it through the entire chapter, and we didn't mean to do that. It's just how it worked out. But it's a really fun game. Really enjoyed it. Wish I would be able to have a copy of it somewhere, but alas, I don't think I will.
One will fall into your lap, I'm sure. Oh, that sounds very cool.
I doubt it.
So Soul Riders. Yeah, I have to look out for that.
Soul Raiders.
Soul Raiders. I'm sorry. Soul Raiders.
Raiders. Yeah. Soul as in the inner being. Raiders. Yeah.
There you go. Oh, very good. Well, the other one I wanted to talk about is oldie. I should say oldie 2020. It's funny how we use that term, right? In the gaming world.
That's decrepit.
What's that?
I can't believe that's decrepit. It's so old. I can't believe.
But hey, with 5,000 games coming out every year,
I know.
You figure that was 20,000 games ago or something.
Yeah,
right?
25,000 games ago, right?
So yeah, it's all relative. But anyway, was Anno 1800 a Martin Wallace game? Yeah. Don't know if you had a chance to play that one.
Mm-mm.
Yeah,
that's usually Martin Wallace. I'm done. Really? Because he usually I think the last, except for Chaos Cove, which is the last Martin Wallace game I ever played. I think the last one I played was Brass, the original Brass, and I was like, dude, this feels like work, and I don't want to work when I play a game. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I like Martin Wallace games, and this one I really enjoy. It's basically I don't know if you want to say an engine builder, because I don't know the exact theme, but what it is, it's just got a whole bunch of different kind of items out on the board, and you got to get shipping and stuff, whatever. But you need, like, if you want to, and you get these cards, and if you want to, it's kind of hard for me to put it together to describe it. But again, if you want to say, and this isn't an actual card, but if you want to make a cake, then you have to get flour and you have to get butter or whatever. And these aren't items in the game, but I'm just trying to explain to you, you have to put these items together to make things and get things, and you have to increase the items you have on your board. And if you don't have an item, you can use somebody else's item, and they get a gold, right? From the bank, which is kind of cool. And I'm sorry I'm giving it a bad description, because it had been probably about 2 years since I played the game, and I used to play it a lot, but I really enjoy it. It was hard getting back into it. As much as I had played the game before, I kind of completely forgot it. So it wasn't until the end of the game where I started to really be like, okay, now I remember what's going on, this and that. Yeah, so, of course, I came in way last. But it's a really good game. It's my type of game. It's one of those kind of games I'll always play, get to the table. I enjoy it. It's a good build-up, and I'm sorry I'm giving such a horrible description of it.
I wouldn't know the difference. So
yeah, there you go. Yeah, but Anno 1800, a Martin Wallace game. If you like Martin Wallace, or you like, it's one of the type of games that I like. I've talked about this with friends, right? If I were walking by a convention, and you're probably the exact opposite of me, Sam. If I see a table with, like, say, cubes and like a map of the Mediterranean, I'm like, that's my type of game. But if I walk by a table and I see all these big minis, I'm like, nope, keep walking. And you're probably the opposite, right?
I am the polar opposite.
Yeah, I figure.
I mean, if I see cubes, I'm like, boring.
Yeah.
I mean, now I'm not like snooty about it. I do enjoy games that have those, cubes, because we're really spoiled right now because we have
Yes.
so many games that have such great components in it. It used to be that if you had wooden components, they were like, ooh, wooden cubes and not cardboard tiles, you know?
Right.
But it's like, no, yeah. I mean, I am like drawn to deluxeified whatever. What even if it's not like a deluxe version, if it's just the base version that like the hierarchy is, minis are the standard. If it has minis, even if it doesn't need minis, because I know it doesn't need it, but even if it doesn't need, if it has minis, wow, that helps my enthrallment of the game. Okay, it doesn't have minis. Okay, well, if it has standees, okay, at least that's better than blah 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 blah.
Right.
Oh, it's got meeples. Okay, well, meeples is better than just cubes. Oh, it has just cubes. Well, okay, cubes is better than just cardboard chits. Oh, it just has cardboard chips. Well, that's at least it has not a paper map on it, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the hierarchy that I go down. But yeah.
Yeah, but no, this game had cubes. Yeah, it has the cubes and it's got the little cardboard tiles of the items you're trying to get. So yeah, that's that kind of genre that's just right up, because that kind of speaks for itself, right? As opposed to like walking by Cthulhu Wars, right? Like a table.
Well, okay, now that was like that. So yes, Cthulhu doesn't really have any draw for me at all. It's either hit or miss, and everybody and their mother made a game that was based on Cthulhu a couple years ago. So if it's Cthulhu and it looks nice, I'm like, okay, whatever. But yeah, there's always different like sectors of board gaming, genres of board gaming that are either hit or miss for me, and Cthulhu is definitely one of them. I don't care how nice the production is. Now I'll still go, ooh, wow, that looks cool, but I'm not like itching to play it just because there's a huge Cthulhu miniature in the game or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. Well, speaking about like, walking by tables at conventions and stuff and seeing the type of games that people are playing, like I say, what attracts you, what would stop you, what looks interesting. Because again, for me, that's what I see, right? If I'm walking through a convention and I see a table with little cubes and, like I said, a map of the Mediterranean or just like, blocks of, building, I'm like, oh, okay, that's probably has my interest. Or if I walk by a table and even just like, like say Blood Rage, right? It's got little tiny, like they're not big minis, but it's got minis. I'll be like, probably not for me. I'm just, that's, I know what type the cube things. So when you're at conventions, how is it for you, Sam? Like what do you see? And again, this is a discussion about, people who maybe don't go to a lot of events, maybe go by themselves, trying to find games, get into games with people. I know, you have the player wanted signs or the green flags, however, you want to do it. Yeah. And that's great. But what are some of the things that you would maybe suggest to people as to how to maybe enter games or to get people to play games with you at events?
Yeah. Well, I think I want to say on, as we dive into this, I want to say, first of all, that realize that conventions are not for everybody. And I say that because you may be watching everybody else in the hobby go to conventions and you're like, well, gosh darn it, I need to go to a convention. I think I should go to a convention. And I say this respectfully, it may not be the right fit for you because there are, like, for example, and I'll use my own self. I do not like large groups of people, all kind of hunkered together. It's one of the reasons why Gen Con is one of my least favorite conventions, because there are so many people packed into the Indianapolis Convention Center. And sometimes it feels like nobody cares that they're bumping into people. Nobody cares that they almost ran me over with their huge backpack full of, multiple copies of Twilight Imperium 4th, or at least that's what it felt like. You know what I'm saying?
No, I get it. Yep.
So my first statement would be second guess, especially if you've never been to a convention before. Maybe Gen Con isn't the best first step that you can make. Or maybe go to a local convention first and try to get the feel for what conventions are like and see. And if that's something you like, then kind of baby step it up to that. I've heard of a lot of people on the cruise, they said, this is our first cruise and this is our first convention type experience. And I'm like, okay, well, good for you. This is a good place to kind of start your convention journey, so to speak, or your convention going journey, whatever. So that would be my first thing. Make sure that you're the kind of person that's going to enjoy a convention, because it can be very stressful because there's so much going on. If you're that kind of person that wants to do everything, you will have an anxiety attack about day 3, because you will realize on day 3 out of 4 days that there's no way I can do everything that I want to do. And now I'm totally bummed because I'm not going to be able to do everything I wanted to do. So just be careful. Now, more to your question at this point now, playing games at conventions can be either really difficult or really hard, depending upon a number of different things. First of all, the kind of person.
Wait, hold it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but hold it. Wait, you gave 2 options there, which I want to sort of push back. You said either really difficult or really hard. I don't think those are the only 2 options, right?
Those are the 2 ends of the spectrum. And
really difficult or really hard?
Yep. No, I'm sorry. Really easy or really difficult, based upon the person that the kind of, there's a number of things. You didn't let me finish, Tim.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, but that's what you said. You gave 2 things, difficult or hard, and I'm like, okay.
No. It's easy. I misspoke. It's either really easy or it's really difficult, based upon the kind of person that you are. And those are the 2 ends of the spectrum. Those are the 2 bookends. And you can fall anywhere in between that based on the kind of persons you are. That's the first thing. The second thing is the kind of convention that you're going to. For example, Gen Con is more of a retail convention. You're not necessarily going to get a lot of game night experiences at Gen Con. Now, there are places for you to go do that, but they're not in the convention center. Right. You can go get a truckload of demos done at Gen Con, and you will probably meet people, and you might even go back to the hotel that you're staying at and play games with them there. But by and large, Gen Con, just like Essen, is not really a game playing convention. It's a convention for you to go pick up games that are being released at the convention that are now available at that convention. You know what I'm saying? And that's more of the kind of convention it is. But, and again, this isn't a plug. I'm just trying to give a frame of reference. Dice Tower East or Dice Tower West, yes, they have exhibitor booths and there's places for you to go purchase games. But by and large, it's almost at the other end of that convention type spectrum, where you're going to be able to play a lot of games.
Oh, yeah. First and
foremost. But not necessarily purchase a lot of games. Whereas with Gen Con, you're going to be able to purchase a truckload of games, but you're probably only going to be able to play a few of them.
Right.
So what I'm trying to say is the kind of person that you are specifically will in part determine how easy or how hard it's going to be for you to play games at a convention. And then the kind of convention you're going to is also going to play into that ease or difficulty of playing a game, because some conventions just aren't for game playing, they're for game purchasing. So
correct.
My encouragement, I guess I should say, would be to know what kind of convention you're going to and know yourself, if that makes any sense.
No, absolutely. It makes a lot of sense. You brought up a lot of good points. And to sort of piggyback off of your points, some of the things, like especially at Dice Tower West, that I'm sort of really passionate about, like in our main gaming hall, we have individual tables set up. So we'll just have a 6-foot table with 4 chairs, right? That's what it was like in our main gaming area. A lot of times at these play cons, it'll just be packed, and you'll have like a row of 10 tables, together, just one row, and people just sitting in. So that helps, or that what do I want to say, exacerbates a little bit of maybe some people's anxiety being too close to other
Absolutely.
people, too many like that. So what I try to do and like to make sure is to make sure at least it's comfortable. Sure, there are still, a few thousand people around you, but at least you can sort of still have the comfort of being at a single table with
Yeah.
just your people, right? So
Yes.
that helps eases a little bit with some of the things you were talking about, right? Bumping into people and all that and feeling the crowds. So in our
Yeah.
main gaming area, it's all like that. It's all individual tables. Our this year in the event center, we have 2 tables together. So it's still not like big rows, it's just 2 tables together. So there could be one group here, so you're kind of next to each other. But still, it gives you that room and that area for that ease, right? Because again,
Yeah.
I'm sort of like you too, right? Like being around all those people, bumping and all that kind of stuff, it's not necessarily conducive. And when I'm at a big event, like at Dice Tower West, and I want to sit down and play, because there is sort of a lot of ambient noise too, right? So even when you're at an individual table, even at a big open gaming space with just the 3 other people, the 4 of you total, you still feel like you're at home in your game night, as you mentioned, right? Because
Yeah.
you have your own little world. And then how about getting into them, right? So how about like maybe joining a group or also maybe setting up a group? What would you offer for people who are looking to join a group? Some things they should look out for, some things they should want to, or asking, people to sit down and join you.
Yeah. Well, one of the good things that, and again, I'm not trying to clang the Dice Tower bell too much here, but one of the things that Dice Tower conventions do well is they have in the library, they have little meeples that are different colors. That will, one color, it used to be red and blue. I think it's green and yellow now. It's what it was on the cruise. Yellow means that you need help being taught the game, and green means that you are looking for players, or it's the other way around. I can't remember what it is,
No,
but
that's correct. Yep.
there's 2 colors, and so if you're grabbing a game and you're trying to learn how to play the game, you can grab um, either just that yellow one and say that I would like somebody to help me learn how to play this game, or you can grab both of them and say I would like to learn how to play this game and I'm looking for more players. So that's one way that you can kind of break the ice at the convention, because frankly, for some people, and I'm really kind of one of them, walking up to people that you don't know and asking them to play a game that you also don't know is a really hard thing to do.
Yeah.
First of all, I have less confidence teaching a game, and that confidence continues to plummet the harder the game is in complexity. I can teach easy games easily. But there's a point at which my confidence level starts to dip, and it just continues to dip the harder the game is to play. So you take that and couple it with the fact that I really don't like being in big groups of people anyway, and um, uh, that's just the way it goes. That becomes a barrier, and so having those little like meeples with flags that you can just set on your table, it breaks through that original barrier. So,
Absolutely.
um, but with that being said, and really my mindset when I go into conventions like this is that I'm a little bit different because people, some people, not everybody, of course, but some people recognize my face, and I don't know them from Adam or Eve or their dog or whatever, and so there's that, and it makes it a little bit easier because people will come up to me and ask me how I'm doing and say hi and ask for a picture or whatever, and that makes it easier for me. If it weren't for that, dude, I don't know that I would go to that many conventions, because that's just not the kind of gamer that I am. I can host a game night, but even then, I have that. It's like this is an event that I'm running, so I have that mentality going into it, which kind of gets past that. If I'm just attending at a convention, who's going to want to play a game with me? Nobody, because nobody knows who I am here and nobody cares. That's kind of my ideology. So it's one of those things where if you're coming into a convention, you need to try, and I'm speaking to myself here, you need to try to step out of your comfort zone
Yes.
and be comfortable with that.
Correct.
If you can't do that, and again, not casting shade at all, because I feel like that sometimes, where I just don't want to step outside of my comfort zone. If you can't do that, then maybe a convention isn't for you, because that's kind of what you have to do at a convention.
Yes.
You
Now,
have to step out of your comfort zone.
absolutely. Now, speaking of stepping out of your comfort zone, that's a great point, because on either side, if you're the person who has put out a game and you put the player wanted sign up, okay,
Mhm.
so you're on
Mhm.
that side, or you're the person walking around looking to join a game that's, a table that has a player wanted sign,
Yeah.
you do have to understand that neither one of you know what's about to happen, right? It could be total strangers. So
Yep.
you really have to, I don't want to say get out of your own ways. You got to be open-minded, and you have to understand that you're creating this new dynamic, right? These
Yep.
people may play a certain way. They,
Mhm.
it could be a game whatever. Say it's a game you like, right? You really like. You may know it
Yep.
inside and out.
Yep.
They may not know it inside and out, just love it and play it, whatever. So you don't know
Mhm.
the dynamics. So going into it, no matter what side you're on, you need to really, first and foremost, concentrate on creating a healthy, friendly environment, and sort
Yeah.
of put the game second, right? Because
Yeah.
you could make, lifelong friends, and many people have. Not only lifelong
Yeah.
friends, like partners, life partners people have met at conventions playing games, right?
Yeah.
So I think first and foremost, that's what you have to have in your mind, whether you're put a flag up to have people join you or whether you're joining a game, is worry about the relationship that's about to happen first when
Yes.
you sit at the table, and how to make that moment, the next
Yep.
hour or two that you're going to spend together, be just a great time together. And the game is
Yes.
sort of secondary, because
Right.
if you're worried about, say, winning the game or whatever, you could turn people off. And not that you shouldn't like throw the game or blow it, but you just have to be fun and friend. And sometimes you got to keep your mouth shut, right?
Okay, here I'm going to go a step further. I agree with everything you said, but I'm going to go a step further, and I'm
Okay.
going to say that the game is not kind of secondary. It absolutely is secondary.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
I'm
Yes.
I'm going to go that next step, because while you may be wanting to play this game to see if you're going to purchase it or whatever, that is always secondary to the faces that you have sitting in front of you.
Correct.
Period. Hard stop and end of discussion. Because, like, I mean, I've experienced the gamut. I really have. I've sat down and played games that I've come into, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to enjoy this game. No way I'm going to enjoy this game. It has everything that I dislike about games, but I've really enjoyed myself at the table because I focused on the relationships, or the burgeoning relationships that are there, instead of
Correct.
focusing on how much I'm probably going to dislike this game. You know what I
Yes.
mean? But I've also felt the other way about it, where I've sat down with a game that I know I love. I know how to play correctly. I know it. And I'm like, well, this is not a good experience because of XYZ that happened during the game. And it just, hopefully I come away from experiences like that saying that hopefully, um, I kind of look introspectively. Hopefully, they aren't coming away from that experience saying, "Well, that could have been more fun,"
Right.
because I hope I wasn't the cause of it. You know what I'm saying? I hope I didn't do anything. I hope the people. I just hope everybody had a great game. I may come away from it saying, "Well, that was a learning experience," and that's okay for me. And I try not to cast shade on anybody else, because everybody plays differently, and you're not always going to mesh with
Correct.
everybody else's play style. And
Correct.
that's another thing you have to realize. One of the things I was learning as I was going through a kind of a psychology course was that you have to know the things that are going to trigger you, so that when you feel that trigger happening, you can suppress it.
Yes.
And so you need to come into these kinds of situations knowing that the one person on the face of the planet that has every single one of your triggers could be that person sitting down next to you to play the game. And you need to be able to control. You need to
That
be
is
able to say the experience at the table is much more important than what I'm going to get out of this.
correct. No, that's an excellent point, Sam. And to further that point, I think we need to talk about going in there with the understanding that you are going to make a commitment.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, I know that, that could mean several things, but I'm specifically talking about, say, the time commitment, okay? Because, as you just mentioned, there could be things that, say, trigger you or whatever, but you have sort of entered into this agreement or this commitment with these people, and you should, in my opinion, kind of fulfill it. I mean, if it's just way overboard and it's just something that's going to set you off, I understand. Maybe get up and leave or do whatever. But if both sides are entering this, knowing that, hey, this is a pleasant whatever, because I played games and it's sort of annoying where people are like, oh, I forgot, I've got a lunch at 1:00 and I got to get up and leave or whatever reason. I'm like, wait a second, you sat down to play the game. Like, why aren't you fulfilling that commitment? So whatever the reason is, I feel it's important that you fulfill your obligation when you sit down at that table to play.
Yes. Now, if I totally agree with you, but personally, I know I've been in situations where the game is normally only supposed to take X amount of minutes, and it has taken now double that. And I'm sorry, I really do have to go do something. I can't. Yeah.
Okay, but let's talk about that, Sam, because this is the thing we're discussing, right? About entering into this relationship you're about to enter into.
Yeah.
Then let's be open and honest with people. Hey guys,
on the front end.
Yes, on the front end. It's 6:00. Yeah. Hey guys, just so you know, I have to leave at 8:00 because I have a dinner appointment. You know what I mean? Yep. But that's what I mean. Don't just like pop up and surprise people or get a phone call and be like, oh, sorry, but whatever. They want me to join them and they're leaving now. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, I totally get that. And that has to come, that kind of actually connects back to one of the things that that I mentioned earlier, the idea of wanting to do everything. You're not going to be able to do everything at a convention. Right. So one of the things that I usually encourage people when they ask me this kind of question is, it usually comes out as something to the effect of how should I prepare for the convention, or how should I do this? And I always tell people, don't overbook yourself, especially if it's your first time at the convention. If it's your second time at the convention and you kind of know how everything is scheduled and you know what you did last time and you weren't so hot on it this time, you want to try some, fine and dandy, schedule yourself to your heart's content. But what I usually tell people is don't overbook yourself. Right. Just go with the flow. Just go with the maybe flow. Have, what I usually do is have 10 to 20, if I'm going to a Gen Con or an Essen or something like that, have 10 to 20 games that I know I want to try to look at over the course of the entire convention, not in one day. You'll never be able to look at that many games in one day unless you're just walking by. And even then, because of how the crowds are, you may not even be able to do that because you might not be able to get close enough to watch the game to be being played, depending on what time of the day it is. So I usually tell people to have an idea of what you want to do, but I usually tell people don't schedule things. Correct. Unless it's something that you absolutely know you want to get done, don't schedule things. Just go with the flow.
Yes, and to emphasize Sam's point, particularly at Dice Tower West and Dice Tower East, you 100%, if it's your first time, if you've never been to a convention, whether you're coming by yourself or say you're coming with two of you, right? Whether you're friends or your partners or whatever, you can 100%, I guarantee this. Sam, I know you'll back me up, Tom, anybody, go to the con with not one single thing planned, and you will be able to play games nonstop throughout the entire convention.
Yep.
Right? Joining groups, doing this or that. So there's no need to feel, and again, I don't want to tell people how to feel, right? But there's really no need to feel anxious or worried or, I don't know, I this, that, because again, we don't, we mean it when we say it, right? Dice Tower events are the friendliest conventions around. And as Tom says, and Sam, I'm going to put you on the spot too, all of the quote unquote, the Dice Tower celebrities, right? The people, if you cannot find a game or you're having trouble finding a game, go and ask them. Okay. Yep. They will play a game with you. Or as Tom says, if he can't, he will get a game for you. Like he will get you in a game. So you never have to worry about that coming to any of our events. You'll always feel welcome. You'll always have people to play with. And if you become a sort of a Dice Tower regular, I don't know what I want to say, who goes to a lot of events, you'll a groupie.
Just kidding.
You'll start to meet more and more and more and more people who you keep seeing event after event after event, and now you just have a big group of people to game with. So you just create this family. But it all starts with your first one. So if whatever you've had holding you back, or whatever you were thinking, give it a try. And Dice Tower event is a good place to start.
Yep, absolutely is. It's one of those places where, like we said earlier, you've got to be willing to step out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
And I think that's true with any convention that you go to. You've got to step out of your comfort zone, and you've got to be willing to sign that social contract that Tim was talking about earlier on.
Correct. Yep.
That kind of puts, that social contract kind of puts the needs of the many above the needs of the few. Okay.
There you go.
And I think that's the kind of idea that you need to come into a convention with, that I'm coming here not for my own personal gratification. I'm coming into this situation, and this is just the terminology I use, to be a blessing to other people.
There you go.
So if I walk into a convention with that mindset, and I think if most people came to a convention with that mindset, where my needs or wants are not as important as their needs or wants, I think we'd all have a better experience.
Great. And Sam, you know what? I don't think we could have ended this segment on a better note than exactly what you just said, because that is so true. Enter into the commitment saying, hey, for this next 2 hours or whatever it is I'm going to sit down, my goal is to make everybody at this table have the next best 2 hours of their life for the next 2 hours. Cool. Just enter into that agreement in your mind with those people that this experience right now I'm going to have is going to be fantastic for everyone. Great way to end that discussion, Sam. Very good. Well, we've come to the end of this show, and as always, Sam, it is a pleasure. It's an absolutely really, really nice talking to you about these things. And again, the reason we're talking about these and discussing these, because these are things or issues that people talk to us about, I talked about, that come up all the time. So we just want to bring things out, pros, cons, both sides here or there, and hear your thoughts about them. So again, if you have any ideas you'd like us to discuss, please put those in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that kind of stuff people do. But with that being said, we will see you on the next episode, right? So
yes, sir.
From Las Vegas, this is Tim saying goodbye.
From the Pacific Northwest, this is Sam saying see you on the flip side.
All right. Bye, everybody.
All right. End recording.